Welcome back to Orange Chat Reviews, everyone. Hope you're all having a wonderful day. So, episode 38 of the Mystery Reviews. I gave out the hints, two versions of the film, and I gave the hint reunion, and then I gave the bonus hint mother. Now, a lot of people could not get it. So next time I will give easier hints for future movies because I don't want to make it too impossible, but I also do want to make it intriguing enough to attract viewers. So yes, today's movie is Final Fantasy Advent Children Complete. There is a theatrical edition that a lot of people know of. And then there is the complete edition, in which is slightly expanded on, 26 whole minutes of it, and also adds in the added storyline and subject of, or so adds in. Oh, hold on. The added storyline and subject of, or there we go. Sorry about that. I also want to keep up with the live chat, so there. So hello to everyone in the chat. But yes, the extended edition to Advent Children, which is called Advent Children Complete, also includes the subplot of the geostigma and how it is affecting people in Midgar. So, without any more ado, let's get into it. So, released in 2006, this is a sequel to the fan favorite Final Fantasy VII video game. This takes place 2 years after the video game. And I gotta say that this is actually one of the coolest movies that I watch. I also get very emotional while watching this movie. You will actually, if you were to sit down and watch this movie with me and look over at me every now and then, you would see that I have tears in my eyes. This movie hits me in that kind of way. So, yeah, this is a movie that actually does a very good job at hitting the right emotional chords. Also, I've always been a massive fan of Final Fantasy VII. The content, the story, all of it is something that I have always loved and cherished. So when they had this movie come out, it was like, that is awesome. And then I seen that they had an extended complete edition, which I watched, and it's like even better. So yes, the complete version is 26 minutes longer, cut differently in certain scenes, and also has different voice actors for Marlene and Denzel, the two orphans. Well, yeah. The movie has its mouth movement fitted to Japanese dub, obviously. It is made by a Japanese studio. But that doesn't really take away from the overall quality. The movie begins with a shout out to fans. To those who love this world and new friendly company therein, this reunion is for you. Now, if you are a fan of Final Fantasy VII, you know that reunion is an actual term of importance in Final Fantasy VII, meaning the reunion of Jenova. Jenova is Heaven's Dark Harbinger, or a calamity that nearly wiped out the planet of Earth in the Final Fantasy VII universe. So we then, or the movie starts as it kind of does in the game with a very familiar scene. It shows, or not with the train run up, but it actually picks up where the ending of the game, if I remember correctly, where it shows Red 13 running along the edges of Cosmo Canyon with two pups behind him. And then climbs up to the top of one of the peaks and howls while he's overlooking Midgar, which has been reclaimed by nature. This is 500 years after the events of the game. And you also see the birds flying overhead. It is shot for shot. It is just updated graphics, essentially. And it is so cool to watch. And it does the same music and whatnot. And Red 13 is actually one of my favorite characters in the game. And also in Machina Final Fantasy VII Machina Abridged on Team 4-Star. Oh my god, they made Red 13 so fucking hilarious. But even how brief his character is in this movie, he still does a good job at catching the hearts of his fans. So then it goes to 498 years earlier, and one of the big differences between the theatrical and the extended edition of this film, the complete edition, is that you have two characters talking at the beginning. You don't know who they are unless you'll know who one is if you've played the game. One of them is Rufus Shinra. However, if you haven't played the game, and I'm not talking about the remake, I'm talking about the original Final Fantasy VII for the PlayStation 1, you will not recognize the other character, but he does play a role in this movie because it's literally starts in like just before the third act of the film. And it's just a small little conversation of, boy, you guys have a short memory, and this is why this is all happening to you and whatnot. So then we go to 2 weeks prior to that scene, and we see the Turks from the Shinra Electric Power Company. They're calling down Reno, dude with the red hair and ponytail, to bring down the chopper, and Sung and Elena have found something that's not a pretty sight. Now, the ambiguousness of the scene, it says it's at the Northern Cave, and I am getting a message. There we go. But yeah. So they go down, and then after they go down into the fog where you can't follow them, they suddenly come under attack. And it's from the there we go. It's from the antagonists in this movie. Now, we don't know who they are yet, but we do slowly learn who they are after you hear Sung and Elena get wounded from gunfire, and Reno manages to get the chopper out of there, and then you jump forward to a narration from Marlene. Now, people don't know, unless you have played Final Fantasy VII, the video game, the original version, not the remake that they have currently going right now, you will not understand, or you will slightly understand the story. It's good entertainment, but unless you have played the game, you will not understand the story for the most part, unless you know of the game. So she goes over the live stream and the essential plot of the video game and a narration of how the Shinra Electric Power Company drew energy from the planet's life stream, and by doing so, was weakening the planet, and people fought back against Shinra. We get a look of the Shinra the Shinra Electric Power Company in Midgar before the cannon was taken out. We learn about Sephiroth. Everybody says, Sephiroth isn't that badass of a character. Honestly, Sephiroth is one of the greatest characters in any Japanese products and video games and any sort of franchise that I have heard coming out of Japan. Sephiroth ranks up there to God tier. This dude can literally summon a meteor that will destroy a planet. He can do all sorts of wicked things. His sword is ridiculously long, and I love it. You don't screw with the one-winged angel, the real one-winged angel. Yes, they did Final Fantasy VII Genesis or something like that, where there's a character called Genesis who's also a one-winged angel, but Sephiroth is the one who is known to be the one-winged angel. And he's extremely dangerous. So then we learn that Sephiroth had the other, or the group, led by Cloud Strife, Barrett, Tifa, and others. He led the assault against Sephiroth because Sephiroth hated the planet. And he learned about the experiments that made him and about Jenova. Sorry, I had to itch my back. And Jenova was a calamity that fell from the skies. And they ended up cloning her using those cells, but also splicing them with humans. And they created Soldier, or Soldiers, but it's literally a unit that's called Soldier, all caps. And Sephiroth was was the greatest of them. He was an enhanced being, except that he was the enhanced being because they never could truly replicate him another way. So she goes over the narration of what happened and how Jenova, or Meteor, almost struck the planet, and with the battles that kept on having more sadness until the day, or the chosen day that came, where the planet decided to fight back against Meteor. Because even in the video game, you managed to beat Sephiroth, you managed to summon the white materia, the white materia manages to activate, but it's too late at the last minute and is overpowering the moment that's supposed to stop Meteor. However, the planet's life stream itself amplified Meteor's effect right over Midgar. And because the life stream coursed throughout that area, caused unknown side effects, and also had unknown side effects to the people living all around the world. When the life stream burst out of the planet to coalesce and destroy Meteor, Sephiroth was already part of the life stream, and Sephiroth is a tainted soul. So, unfortunately, it causes what's called geostigma. Now, geostigma is the main problem in the movie. While Sephiroth does come back into the movie later on, geostigma plays a huge part in the movie. Now, everybody thinks it's caused by Mako energy, which was refined life stream energy. However, that is not the case. Geostigma literally came from the life stream and infected people. It's not contagious. However, anybody who does have it will eventually die because it starts as a blackened rash or skin mark that can easily be mistaken for dirt. However, it infects certain parts of the body, and wherever you're infected with it, eventually starts secreting a black ooze. And once the body tries fighting against this infection, it overcompensates and ends up killing you. And that is why, and they show it very graphically in the complete version of the film. In the theatrical version of Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, you do not see the deadly effects of geostigma. You do not see how people are reacting to it. It becomes a very background thing. However, in the complete version of this film, they actually do a wonderful job at putting that part back in and explaining this is actually what it was meant to be about. That fighting against this malevolent force that came out of the live stream and is infecting people. Now, one of the greatest lines from the narration that she says, because she said, there was a lot of battles and a lot of sadness, and sadness was the price to see it end. And it is truly a great line, because if you think about it, there was a lot of sacrifice in order to stop Sephiroth the first time around. So we now get to the to the 2 years later, after the summons of Meteor, and there are still remnants of Sephiroth's wig, the Geostigma, and you're introduced to Denzel and Marlene, and she's still narrating over what Geostigma and what the planet did to people with the Geostigma. You also see how Midgar is slowly rebuilding after, or even 2 years later, it is still rebuilding and putting in housing units to different areas. And you see some of the kids looking, and then you see two kids who are orphaned from the fall of Midgar. You also see them, and one of them has Geostigma really badly, and his sister doesn't. His sister is holding her brother, and you see another person dying of Geostigma, where the ooze is just coming all out of him, and then he just collapses. And then they cut to Cloud's home with Tifa at Seventh Heaven, the bar. So we then get to let's see here. The phone phone call or the phone ringing. Now, another small difference is you're hearing a news report about how it's still dangerous to go anywhere near Shinra's headquarters because of Mako levels or life stream levels being so toxically high in those areas. However, it is safer than it was 2 years ago. And then you hear the phone ringing, and Tifa's like, he's not here anymore. But the phone persistently rings, and she gets a call from Reno. And she relays the message to Cloud, because now Cloud is doing a delivery service instead of saving the planet, because the planet was already saved. Now, there's a small hint that there's something wrong with Cloud, because when he's listening, or he's at Zack's grave. For those of you who don't know who Zack is, played the video game. Zack was a character from the video game who Cloud modeled his life after. Cloud is literally promised to be his living legacy. And he then pretended to be Zack he took Zack's history as his own. So Tifa relays that he got a call, or that they got a call from Helan, which is another place from the video game, and that they have work for him. Decepticon, Cave of Villains. Good to see you. Stunning, is that you? Stunning and Brave? But anyway, after he hangs up the phone, he holds his arm a little bit, or he holds his arm. The contract with Chris Pine is good. Have no idea what that is, or what or that is reference to. I'm reviewing Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. But yes, you get the idea that there's something really wrong with him as he holds his arm after he hangs up his phone. And then he goes to rev the engine to his bike, and these friggin' motorcycles are crazy awesome designs, man. They're meant to go you've heard of an ATV. Well, this is an ATM or motorcycle. Final Fantasy VII is okay. It's not. Well, look it up. New movie. Okay. I will later on. But right now I'm doing a mystery review. So, yeah. And thank you for stopping in, too, Decepticon Cave of Villains. I really do appreciate the support. And anybody else who is watching, feel free to hit the like, share the stream out, because obviously Twitter shadow banned my post at saying that I'm live. So, yeah. Haven't got much notice to it until I'm already into the dang thing. But, yeah. So he starts riding off away from where he was, and that's when the three antagonists show up in the film. Now, they show up a lot sooner in the theatrical. However, with the extended story, they still show up in the same spot where they're meant to be, and it's still the same dialogue. However, it's like 10 minutes later in the theatrical or in the complete version of Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. So Laz, Yazoo, and Kadaj are three remnants of Sephiroth. You could tell that they are somehow connected to Sephiroth because they all have that silver gray hair. And you'd almost think that Yazoo would be the one to really be the Sephiroth character, because he actually has the longer hair where Kadaj has shorter version of his hair. And you also have Laz, who's just a kid, or he's a more muscular version of them, but he's also, he has weird hair. My thoughts was you were doing Psycho, 2 versions, meaning colorized remake. No, but it's a good guess, though. However, I mean, those, or reunion wouldn't make sense with Psycho. But yeah. So then they're looking for Mother, and so they notice Cloud, and they go after him. And while Laz and Yazoo are attacking Cloud with shadow creepers, these beasts that are literally come out of or are made of shadows and just don't die, because Cloud literally strikes at one with his fusion sword, which is a high or more high-tech 7-in-1 sword of the Buster Sword. And you see it turn into dust and fly backward, but it's still running in mid-air until it lands back on the ground and continues running. The choreography for this scene, the insane moves of the bikes, and how these bikes can literally turn sideways. Like, say, I'm going to use a jet here because this is what I have at hand. Say that this is a motorcycle, and it can literally turn sideways as it's riding and do all sorts of different maneuvers. It is pretty freaking awesome. I wish they had bikes like this right now, because it's super cool. Cloud is trying to fight these guys. He's also deflecting the bullets. The sword guns from Final Fantasy VIII are in this movie. The main character from Final Fantasy VIII, who has a sword blade, his weapon is used as the enemies, or as Laz and Yazoo's weapons in this movie. However, Yazoo doesn't really use that. He actually uses an enhanced glove, or an enhanced gauntlet glove that puts a lot, or packs a lot of power behind his punches. So while Cloud is fighting off the shadow creepers and Laz and Yazoo, because they're going after him, they're like, "Where's Mother? We know that you hit her. Where is she?" He has no idea, or Cloud has no idea what's going on. And then you see Kadaj talking to somebody on the phone and wanting the president to be put on. So now you know exactly who he's talking to. He's talking to the Turks, and he wants to talk to Rufus Shinra. So then when they start overwhelming Cloud, and they have a nice little round shot that pans around him like this of all the shadow creepers about to overwhelm him, and then you get you see Kadaj dispel them all. Now, that is actually a pretty cool scene where they just are all dispelled, and it's basically a signal for Kadaj and Law, or Yazoo and Laws, to pull back. Our work is done here. To basically they were essentially there to let Cloud know that they're there and that they want, or that they're a threat, essentially. So after that, let's see here. The remnants withdraw. So yeah, I'm going over my be patient, because I'm actually going over my talking notes for this stream, referencing the different areas. So then Cloud goes to Helan, and while he's there, he's hearing a message from Barrett on his phone, where Barrett, the big guy with the arm gun, has struck oil, literally. And he found an oil field, and he's surveying the area, and he's like, surveying's done, so I should get back there to see Marlene soon. Marlene is the orphan from Final Fantasy VII, the game, where Barrett adopted from his friend, because his friend went nuts in the game. So then we get to him arriving there, and I absolutely love what he does. He puts his smaller sword in his motorcycle, because the two sides of the motorcycle open out and have 6 slots for the swords that go to his fusion sword. So it is pretty freaking cool. Like I said, if this thing existed in real life, it would be so freaking awesome. I mean, this is some Batman kind of shit that they would have, if Batman ever used a sword. But yes, the technology that they have is not super advanced, but it is extremely cool to see. I mean, I would bet that something like this motorcycle, an all-terrain motorcycle, would be possible pretty soon, like in the next 12 years. However, something as advanced as what they have in Final Fantasy VII, I do not think would be readily available for another 20 to 30 years from now. That's if we end up having greater leaps in technological advances. But yes, the Cloud arrives at Helan, and as soon as he steps through the door, he raises his sword to block a strike from Reno. And then he lets Reno run and go tripping out the door. And then Rude comes in from the game. He's the guy with the glasses from the Turks, who likes to fight with his bare hands or with a rod as well. And the second he pulls out his stun rod, Cloud just puts the blade up to his chin and is like, don't mess with me. He doesn't have to say anything, but Rude basically gets the idea. So then Rufus Shinra comes in all covered in a blanket and is shrouded, but you see on his hand he has a little geostigma. So you also see the flashback to what the game did, but they updated the graphics to make it for the movie. When one of the weapons from the game shot all of its weaponry at Midgar and nearly killed Rufus Shinra. So you think that he is extremely heavily scarred. And Cloud is there. He's like, what do you want from me? Who are those people to attack me or that attacked me? And while Rufus is trying to explain what happened to him, Cloud doesn't want anything to do with it. He's like, I'm leaving. And so Rufus drops the pretense and just starts telling them, we need your help. Not interested. I acknowledge that my company owes the planet a lot and that we're also responsible for the sorry state that it's in. So he then goes into a longer conversation about Sephiroth and how his company is investigating Sephiroth's wake from 2 years ago when he went on a rampage. And in the theatrical edition, you don't get much of the conversation. They say, what do you think we found? Nothing at all. You can relax. And then he talks about Kadash and the threat. Now, in this version, you see, or they show back to what happened in the Northern Cave 2 weeks prior, where Sung and Elena are taken. It shows from Elena's point of view, she hands something to Rude and the door closes to the chopper and it pulls out. She says, get out. And so she goes to shoot her gun at something. And she goes to stand by Sung, who was injured on the ground. And then you see all three, Laz, Yazoo, and Kadash come out with, or they're all shirtless, but they have these black vein-like things creeping up. And Kadash's suit then appears around his body. And you hear him say, you won't be able to hide her from us for long. And this is all happening during the conversation between Cloud and President Shinra. Now, one of the things I do like about how they tell the story in this movie, the Japanese have a very good way of telling these stories with their animated movies. It's where they expect their audience to have a level of multitasking with their mind, where you can hold on to two separate conversations at once to also understand what is going on in the greater context. And they really do a good job with that kind of storytelling because while a lot of people would get confused, they do it in a way that it's not too confusing, if that makes sense. And one of the things I really do like about this is that they try to do the Japanese translations from the dub or the Japanese dub word for word. They try to do that as best as they can, but translation does not always work well. Now, with the English dub, which is what I watch for this because I have the digital version of it, I could go back to Japanese dub if I want. One of the things I will say between the theatrical dub and the Japanese dub is that I like how certain lines from the theatrical dub, I wish they had incorporated them into the complete dub, because some of how the word or the lines are delivered in a way that just don't sound like they are right for that situation. Like he's like, what do you think we found? Nothing at all. You can relax. That was theatrical, or the theatrical version of the film, where in the complete dub, you have like, and what do you think we found? We found nothing at all. You can relax. It doesn't really fit the somber mood of the scene. However, it still does get the job done of telling you what's going on in the scene, There are some dialogue changes and some action changes in the film that some are hit and miss, but some are actually an improvement. So when they're talking about who Kadash is and what he wants, and in the theatrical, you actually see Cloud react to Reno talking outside the door. He's like, "You're a buddy, aren't you?" And he kicks the door to shut him up. You don't see that in this movie or in the complete version. You actually just have Rufus Shinra and Cloud talking the whole time. And then they end up with the same result. It's like, all we want is to rebuild our world, Cloud. And then this puts Cloud, he's thinking about it, but then Reno has to open his mouth. He's like, come on, Cloud, think about it. Together we could rebuild Shinra. And then he's like, not interested. And fucking Rude and Reno are like, Reno. And you see Reno before the door closed, and he's like, he knows he screwed up. So the next scene is as that door closes, another door opens, and it's Tifa going through. And it's at the church or that was Aerith's church in the game, with all the flowers in the floor and whatnot. And I love how this scene is done. It shows that Cloud is not staying at his home. A lot of people know that Cloud Strife is a hero in the Final Fantasy VII game. And this is a hero 2 years later who has geostigma, who has been looking for a cure because one of the orphans that he lives with has it. And he feels like a failure because he can't help this kid. He hasn't found a cure for the kid or for himself because he has geostigma. So he's living in exile with his own, or from his own family, Tifa and Marlene and Denzel. And while Marlene is explaining it, she's like, does Cloud live here? And Tifa's realizing, I guess he does. That's why he hasn't come home. But then they realize that he is also sick. So it's like, well, why didn't he say anything? And she's trying to explain to Marlene, he just wants to fight alone. But then she's like, wait, fight? She's like, no, I don't think he will. Tifa knows Cloud because they've been friends since childhood. But yet she can't get a read on him since after the events of Final Fantasy VII. Cloud has essentially lost all hope. This is a hero who has been carrying around the loss of Aerith, or Ares, depending on which version of Final Fantasy VII you decide to embrace. It's the same character, it's just a different name, Ares or Eris or Aerith. I prefer Aerith. And it's also dubbed in that film as well, Aerith. Her name is never spoken, but in the credits at the end of the film, it's Aerith. So you then see, or Marlene is like trying to figure out what Tifa's saying. So Tifa's like, let's go home. Not yet, or we can't. Cloud's not here yet. And they're like, I miss him too. So she's like, all right, say he comes back. We can all go home. Well, not before he gets a lecture. And that's basically, and then she's like, uh-huh. And now where they cut in the next scene is where they cut to Rufus Shinra, Reno, and Rude are on the floor in pain, and Kadaj is there. They don't cut to that scene yet in the complete version. In the complete version, they cut to Denzel, who thinks that Cloud has disappeared because of him. Now, while it is true that Cloud did indeed disappear because he feels that he has failed Denzel, he didn't leave because he hates Denzel. Denzel thinks that Cloud hates him, or he thinks that he became too much of a burden for Cloud. So he says, I guess I was the last straw. And you get background onto who Denzel is. They don't go over the background of Denzel in the theatrical edition of this movie, which I actually think is a marked improvement in the complete edition, where they tell you, well, where did this kid come from? In Final Fantasy VII, the game, we've never heard of Denzel. Well, now you know that this was a kid who lived in Sector 7 of Midgar, which was destroyed during the battle against Sephiroth and the summoning of Meteor. And before he was taken in by Cloud, they show you he's wandering the area by the church, and he reaches up to his head and pulls it away, there's some black ooze from geostigma. So now you know he has geostigma. And he's getting racked with pain. And it's in it, or the pain, or wherever you have geostigma is where the pain flares, or when the pain flares up, it flares up in that area. So depending on the severity of where you have the geostigma, that is where the pain will, or it's like a very sharp shooting pain. For Denzel, he has it here, but he also goes like this a lot, or like this. So he had, most likely, if you were to shave his head, because he has a nice mane of hair, he'd probably have it around his temples and other areas. So when the pain of the geostigma flares up, he holds his head. Now he finds, or in the scene that provides the background for Denzel, he finds Cloud's bike at the church, and he uses Cloud's phone to try to call his parents home in Sector 7. And it says Sector 7 isn't, or there's no signal for Sector 7. Please try again later. And then he calls the last number that was, or that called the phone, and it's Tifa. And she's like, Cloud, you never call. How have you been? But then she hears that it's not Cloud. Hey, Kamen Rider, good to see you. And you see that at this point, Denzel is he's lost, he's alone, he's scared, he's confused, all of it, going with the fact that he also has a sharp pain in his head that he doesn't understand. So when Tifa's trying to prompt who he is, how did you get Cloud's phone? He's like, I don't know. And then he collapses from the pain from the geostigma. This is all it's a scene that kind of makes you very wishing, for anybody who has any sort of parental instinct, you almost want to jump through the screen and help this kid. This movie strikes a lot of emotional reactions, especially for me. I may not have kids myself, but I do have a parental instinct. Kamen Rider, the movie that I'm reviewing is Final Fantasy VII Advent Children Complete, the director's cut to Advent Children. And so then you hear Cloud's voice just as the kid's fanning out of consciousness, like, hey. And then you see him answer a phone, or answer the phone in Seventh Heaven, and somebody's calling him and telling him that or to go to the church, or maybe it's Tifa letting him know that you're at, or that her and Marlene are at the church while he's at the bar in Seventh Heaven. Now, then he hears a motorcycle revving and he thinks it's Cloud. So he goes out with a smile on his face, and then you see that it's Yazoo from Kadaj's gang speeding or zipping by on his motorcycle. And after he blows by, he then stops and looks and recognizes the kid, or at least that he has geostigma. The remnants have a way of sensing kids with, or sensing people with geostigma, or knowing that they have it. And their plan is to use the kids who have geostigma. So we then get a cut to another one of the kids, the same two kids that you saw earlier who were living out on the street. Well, the boy who has geostigma worse collapses. And his sister with the stuffed animal, or the boy's stuffed animal, is trying to help him up. And you see a couple of strangers try to help the boy, but when they grab the kid, they end up grabbing one of the oozing parts of his body where the geostigma is killing him. And their reaction is, oh my God, he has the stigma, get away. Why can't you people stay inside? You hear all of the hatred for the people who have geostigma. Now, again, the people think geostigma is contagious. However, it's not. It targeted different people in different ways, along with the severity. So, hold on one second. I need a drink. So the people are freaking out essentially over nothing, but the kid, getting back to the kid that had it, ends up dying, and Denzel sees the girl put her brother on her back, and he tries handing her the, hey, Jen's geoists, yeah. Jen's better, good to see you. So he tries handing her the stuffed animal, and she takes it with a very angry look on her face, which is understandable because her brother just died, and so she's going to carry him, or she's carrying him off on her back. I mean, she's only a little bit older than her brother, so it's kind of a struggle, you know? So then we get a cut to the scene where Kadaj is trying to talk with Rufus, and Rufus is telling Kadaj that what we took from you, it fell from the chopper when you were engaged trying to shoot at us. I'm afraid we were careless. And so he's trying to deflect the conversation to try to deny that he knows where Genova or mother, he tries to deny not having her. Now, considering how these kids can identify, or the kids, I call them remnants, Yazoo Laws and Kadaj, a lot of people will say that these guys are insane. Yes, they're insane, but if you also think about it, they're children in adult bodies. They were literally created 2 years prior. However, in adult bodies, they kind of have a mentality of a child, like half their age, or even less, or lesser than half their age, or more than half their age. Whatever. But anyway, that's or especially presented in Laws's character in the next scene after this, where you see, but anyway, Kadaj is basically saying, we need Mother's cell, or we need Mother's power. The reunion is coming and we need her. Well, automatically Rufus knows what reunion means, because we know that what Sephiroth was doing was a reunion of Genova cells, which is from the game. So he knows exactly what their intentions are after he says that, but he decides to placate Kadaj, and he's like, what do you mean? He's like, well, she does so much for us, and we don't even know where to find her. We've already sent out the invitations, but somebody's gone and hid the guest of honor. Invitations, the stigma, but you already know all about that, sir, because he notices the stigma on it, or the geostigma on his hand. So he's like, once, or geostigma and a legacy aren't enough, not for a true reunion. And he's like, what do you mean? But sir, surely you've noticed. So then he kneels before the president and starts channeling his energy. And you then see him look up, and you then see how he resembles Sephiroth extreme, or a lot. And you also, when they play the scenes that are related to Geostigma and Genova, they do these little cut inserts that show genetic material. And when they also cut Sephiroth into, or showing that the kid is essentially Sephiroth, just a younger and lesser matured version of him. I love how they intercut these things. The sound design for this movie is absolutely amazing. This movie's objective quality is up there. However, some of the lines and the writing, while that is their complete intent, could have been better. So getting on to the next scene, because that's where this scene ends. Oh shoot, I did forget about the scene where, or the extended scene, because I'm back on my talking points. where Reno and Rude were talking about how Shinra screwed up the planet, but also how their plans are to find Sung and Elena so that they can get back to helping Shinra rebuild. And that's when Kadaj actually arrives. It is actually a decent scene. Before he arrives, in that scene that I just went over, you see dark smoke coming through the door, and then the screen goes black and you hear Kadaj, "Found ya." And I'm like, okay, that's creepy in the right way. That is scary in the right way, where you realize the bad guys just found the good guys. And it's not going to end well. So yes, in the completed version, they have that scene, but in the theatrical, that was a scene that they actually cut out. So, we then see Cloud's remembrance of Zack as he puts the sword of Zack up on that hill where Zack and him were near, or where Zack was killed and he wasn't. There was, or the scene where the three remnants were introduced into the film originally is where they see Zack's sword and they kick it off from where it was sticking in the ground. Well, then you see Cloud re-put the sword back in, and you hear him, "I said I'd live out both of our lives." Easy to make that promise. But then he starts remembering Zack and the lines of Zack. He's like, "So you want to be a soldier? Hang in there." And then so what are you going to do when we get back to Midgar? And checking to see if Cloud's okay. At this point, remember, Cloud was not a soldier. He actually flunked out. He never made it. And you see a little bit more of the remembrance in the completed version. And then you also see what happens where are cut versions of the whole situation where he got shot, or where he and Cloud were shot down, and Zack pleads with Cloud to live up to his name and to take on his role as a soldier, that he is his living legacy. And it was actually a very great scene. And you also see how Zack gives Cloud the Buster Sword, and then he suffers from another attack of Geostigma from his arm, but it keeps coming stronger. And you then hear Sephiroth's words. He's like, "From the game, you're nothing. You can't do anything. You're just a puppet." Which is something that always got to Cloud in the game. He doesn't like the fact that he was just a puppet, you know? So, moving on to the next scene, the battle in the church between Laws and Tifa. I like how it started out where it was just Tifa looking over Marlene as Marlene was tending the flowers. But then Laws just busts straight in. He's like, or walks in, and Marlene thinks it's Cloud, so she goes to run to hug him, but Tifa grabs him, and he's like, "You want to play?" And so, obviously, seeing that they're not in the mood for playing, I guess that's a no. Where's Mother? And then you see how averse his reaction is to the flowers, so you know that he's not exactly human, or that he's of anything that is good. He's literally a tainted being, because he is so averse to the smell of those flowers that he can't handle it at first. So he's like, "Gross." And so then he asks again, more forcefully, "Where's Mother?" And Tifa tries telling him, "There's no one here." "Fine, play with me." So she understands this is a guy who's looking for a fight. So the fight between Tifa and Laws is pretty great. It shows that Tifa has not lost her edge or her skill. However, she's not as strong as she once was back in Final Fantasy VII, where she was extremely powerful along with everybody else. 2 year, 2 years of peace will stagnate uh, a warrior's power, essentially. And so while she holds her own, she kicks his ass a little bit. He hits her once with his power glove, and you see her, I love how they showed the energy from his glove, or from his power glove, crackling in her palm, where it's like you see the crackle, and then she just whips her hand back into a fist and goes back after him. And she starts dragging the fight around the church. And when they first fight, one of the coolest things is Marlene's reaction, because Marlene, for the first time, is seeing Tifa fight and really cut loose in 2 years. Marlene was like 3 or 4 in Final Fantasy VII, but she never, or also during the time, she also never seen Tifa fight. She was being looked after by Aerith's adoptive mother. So then you see her reaction, and it's like, what the? You see that, holy crap, Tifa can still move pretty fast, even though she's not as strong as she once was. And the fight choreography is pretty well done. However, when you're doing mocap and you're still doing a fight scene, you still can't just strike a person in the face and whatnot. So you do see that some of the punches that are supposed to land go wide a little bit. And it's like, it's still done pretty well, though. It still translates very well. And the scene where Laws grabs her after she slams him against the ground, he grabs her by the ankle, whips her around, and then throws her, where she lands against the wall in a prone to kind of like a Spider-Man pose. And then she just lands there, and then you see the flowers just whip up petals because of this sheer force and speed that she went by them. And then you see her look up at Laws. Laws has a smile on her face, and she's like, what is this guy, you know? So then she tries ending the fight with a charge, which she managed to successfully do, dragging him along the floor, throwing him up, and then throwing him back down into the pews. Well, you then think that's the end of that fight, because, well, he hasn't gotten up yet. And so Marlene is going to Tifa, and Tifa is getting ready to embrace Marlene. But then you hear the Final Fantasy VII victory music start playing, and it's like, what's going on? And then you see Laws just get up as if nothing, or as if he hadn't just been pummeled a bunch of times by Tifa. And he's like, oh. So he picks up his phone because it's his ringtone, and you see that Tifa's visibly worried that this guy just got up after a thorough pummeling. And he's like, she's not here. I'm not crying. Okay, got it. I'll bring the girl. And Tifa's wondering, what's that now? But it's not said exactly that way. So then he gets ready for another attack, and he's like, where were we? And you see how he places his foot, and Tifa immediately knows what's about to happen. So he kicks the pew that he just put his foot under, and Marlene hides behind her, and you see her just smash the pew with her hands. But then you see that Laws has super speed, and that he immediately speeds up to her. Tifa's like right here where my hand is, and his hand goes right to her abdomen with his power glove. And you see him look like this with a grin. And then he activates the power glove. And then you see Marlene, who was hiding back behind Tifa, you see her shocked look, or a close-up of her face, a shocked look, as the glove closes after it blasted Tifa. And then you see Laws or Tifa smash up against one of the pillars in the church, and then Laws catches her again and activates the glove again into her abdomen area, and then he just throws her aside. That glove, considering how it's literally blown up pillars and shit right through Tifa, it's like she would have no diaphragm after that. I mean, he could literally destroy organs with that level of force. So then when he's about to finish her, Marlene throws or opens up the box that Cloud left behind, and it's just stacked full of materia. And I'm like, who leaves that shit unattended? And she throws a thing of materia at Laws's head, and he realizes, oh, shit, materia, okay. He gets up and goes over towards Marlene, and Marlene yells out Cloud, hoping that he'll come at the last second. But Tifa's like, just run. But then you see, or it cuts to Denzel reacting reacting to something, even though he's not there. He just feels that something has happened. And the girl that he helped with the stuffed animal and her brother comes up. Now, in the theatrical version, all she does is, you got the stigma too? Come on, they're going to fix us. And you realize it's Laws that's leading them out into a truck to take them somewhere. But you get a more extended in the complete version where she says that her brother didn't make it, and she's sorry about before of how she reacted when he was just trying to help. And so then you see them get onto a truck, which Laws is driving out into or out of Midgar. Now, you also see the or Cloud arriving or in the church, and he sees Tifa, and then he falls unconscious after Tifa tells him that she's late and that the person that attacked didn't say who they were. And then they both fall unconscious, her from getting her ass handed to her, and Cloud from another geostigma attack. And it's coming on even stronger because he's now starting to, or his geostigma is starting to ooze black. So he is running out of time. And then when he falls unconscious, we go back to Denzel remembering, or Cloud is remembering what happened to Denzel. Memory is a very important theme in Final Fantasy VII because genetic memories and whatnot. Yes, Vanja Koschik. I am doing Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. And morning, Price is Right reviews. Good to see you. It's the complete version of Advent Children Complete. There was no movie to take place after Final Fantasy VII 8, unfortunately. I'm doing the movie that took place after the video game of 7. Not the remake, but the original PS1 version. So they give the continuation of what happened with Denzel. Hey, Sherry, good to see you. Always good to have you in here. Now, for those of you who are just joining, please smash the like button and share the stream out. It does help the channel a lot. I'm doing my best to get my hours up to 2,500 at least. Also, let people know that if I can get to 1,000 subscribers before June, I will dye my hair orange. And I'll even keep the beard and dye it orange as well. So, yeah, you're going to see a very orange hat. So if you guys do that, I'll do that for the 1,000 subscriber celebration stream for when I do that stream. Now, so yes, if you can, share my channel out as much as you guys can, and try to see if you can get me to 1,000 subscribers. If you guys can get me to at least 1,000 subscribers before June, I'll dye my hair and beard and all that silliness, and you guys can all make fun of me. So getting back onto it, the continuation of what happened to with Denzel's origins, Cloud picks him up and puts him on the bike and tells him, hold on, Tifa asked me to bring you with me. And that's how Cloud ends up finding Denzel. And you see how scared Denzel is and confused as he is from earlier in that scene, to where he's literally trembling when he holds on to Cloud, and he's holding on as tightly as he can, but he's also shaking because of how scared he is and whatnot. I mean, remember, this is a kid that literally just lost his parents, was exposed or has geostigma, racking pain throughout his head and causing a lot of confusion. So yeah, you can understand how scared the kid is. So then Cloud wakes up at his apartment, and Reno and Rude from the Turks are telling him, you're pretty heavy. Weren't there a couple kids living with you? Because they're not here. And it's intercut between where Kadaj it's intercut between Cloud, sorry, brain fart, is riding to confront Kadaj and his gang. And it's semi-different. It's semi-different, really. But also the extended scene, which is next, where Kadaj gets his hands on the materia, and where they basically say, another gift from Mother, concentrated magics from the life stream. And with this materia, those powers will be ours. Now, the white materia that Kadaj uses, I looked it up. There is no specific materia he uses, except for that's the only one that he uses that he puts into his arm. Now, he can shoot magical fire blasts from it, and he can also summon, because we all know that he summons Bahamut later in the film. So I'm guessing it is literally a master materia. That's literally a master summons or master summoning materia, master spell materia. Kind of all materia in one, so to speak. So we get that materia, Laz is also looking at it, and he has Marlene, because he kidnapped Marlene. And while she's running, you see Kadaj just launch a blast, shattering a tree near her, and to stop her from running. And it's like, oh shit, man, he's pretty nuts. He almost killed a kid. So the next scene between Tifa and Cloud, intercutting with him on his bike riding to the Forgotten City from the game, and Tifa reminding him to move on from Aerith's death, because she's like, you're just going to you have geostigma, don't you? You're just going to sit there and die, right? Well, he's like, there's no cure. That doesn't stop Denzel from fighting. Come on, we can fight this. I know we can. And he's just still moping, and she's like, I guess that only works for real families. And he tells her, I'm no good to anybody, not my family, not my friends, nobody. And so she's like, dilly-dally, shilly-shally. And then she says it again, and he looks up, reminded of Aerith, because that's something that Aerith used to tell him. And then you have the Turks come in saying that Kadaj has the kids, and they're in the Forgotten City. And you see Cloud driving on his way there to rescue the kids. So, yeah. And we then, or as he's riding there, we then see what goes on with Kadaj and the kids, where Kadaj gives a speech, and he seems to have a limit break, because when you see Cloud with his limit breaks in the movie, he's kind of surrounded by the same energy that Kadaj gives off. So Kadaj is kind of giving off a limit break of his own when he's telling the kids that The reason why you have geostigma is because the planet has made you differently. That you're all special, essentially. So then when he goes into a little stream, you see how the stream just is tainted by his aura from his limit break. And he has them all go into the stream as well and do their own little sipping of the water, kind of a little Christ moment there. And they all start having slitted eye or slitted pupils like he and his brothers do, or like the remnants. They activates the Genova cells in them from the geostigma. So with Cloud on his way, he then finds himself in, or as he's riding through the Forgotten City, you see everything around him go white, and then you see him somehow just falling into or crashing into a meadow-like area where it's all white around him, but the floor is just flowers, the same flowers in Aerith's garden. And she is there, and she's like, you came, even though you're about to break. That's a good sign. So why did you come? And what it is he's in his own head right now. But it seems to be much more. That is one of the coolest things about Final Fantasy VII universe is that, are you a huge fan of Final Fantasy fan? Yes, actually I am, Kamen Rider. This movie gets me gets me crying a lot. Let's just say that, because a lot of people have those whole geek out and, oh my God, I'm crying so much and whatnot. This is a movie that can actually do that for me. So when Cloud says or explains why he came, he's like, I think I want to be forgiven more than anything. And Aerith asks him, by who? And I like how when Aerith is in these scenes, you do not ever see her completely. You don't see her eyes, but you do see her mouth and the rest of her body and whatnot saying by who, but you don't see the rest of her head. But you also never see her full face. And then when he looks over his shoulder, because they're back to back in his head, he goes to turn, but then the reverie is gone. And then he's snapped out of it by bullets because Yazoo and Laws are shooting at him. And then you also see that they have materia in their arms, and now they're enhanced up on materia. So he gets two swords out of his. He gets a sword and one of the fusion swords out, and you see Kadaj call down the kids. So now Cloud, who is already compromised, already filled with a lot of doubt, essentially has given up trying to fight. And this is a lot more interesting because you see how much of a toll geostigma and his doubt has taken on him. He crashes his bike because he doesn't want to run over the kids that just appeared in front of him when that Kadaj called down. And he tries fighting all three of them, and he's getting his ass handed to him for the most part. Kadaj is usually stands back and lets them lets Laws and Yazoo have most of the fun, and Yazoo's kicking his ass using his and his brother's gun blades. And the choreography in this scene is purely, it's like, holy crap, man. You see that Yazoo's using his super speed, pounding into Cloud, or not Yazoo, but Laws, and hitting him or trying to hit his glove. They're not giving Cloud a chance to breathe. Whenever Cloud tries getting distance from one of them or from Yazoo, Laws is there to not give him the chance to recover or breathe or get any distance at all. And he does something to either he goes after Cloud directly, or he gets Yazoo to get closer to him. Because the further you are from the bullets that are flying at you, the better chance you are is going to stopping them with your sword. So yes, they're trying to kill essentially Cloud, even though and Cloud is eventually holding his own, but then he sees Kadaj just standing there, and he decides to go after Kadaj. So Kadaj easily wipes the floor with him very swiftly, and as he's about to kill him, you hear a gun cocking, and as the blade is falling, you see the blade or the gun or the bullet smack the blade away from him, and then you see the red shroud of Vincent Valentine coming in. Now, in the version that I watched, the complete version plus the theatrical, it happens roughly the same way, but it is shown differently in each film. When the shroud surrounds Cloud, you don't see what's under the shroud shooting at Kadaj to get him or to get some distance. But in the complete version, you do. You see that it is Vincent and that he's shooting at Kadaj to get him out of the way. And then Laws and Yazoo are going after Vincent. So then Vincent decides to take Cloud and get the heck out of there. We then get the confirmation, essentially, that Cloud says, he's like, you see, I told you I would not be, or I told you I'd be of no help. And then he asks him, Vincent, what do you know about this? And Vincent tells him, I've come here often. I've seen what Kadaj and his gang are doing. The stigma, it's a symptom of alien matter infesting the body. The body tries to fight it and overcompensates. Inside our bodies is a stream, much like the life stream, and that stream helps us fight off malevolent intruders. And he's like, what do you mean by intruder? The Genova cells, or the Sephiroth gene, Genova's mimetic legacy. Call it what you want. If they wanted to, and so they're like, Kadaj, what is he? I'd rather not know. And Cloud wonders how he's so well informed, and Vincent tells him, Sung and Elena, Kadaj and his gang brought them here, and I did what I could to save them, but we'll see. And they must have been brutally tortured because they got their hands on Genova's head. So he then tells him, he's like, so when Kadaj is looking for Mother, Heaven's Dark Harbinger, the Calamity, Genova. And that is what the hint from the hints that I gave. Jacob Ironside, good to see you. One of the hints was Mother in the streams before I got the stream going. Now, one of the things I forgot to cover was that during the fight between Kadai or the remnants and Cloud drops his phone into the stream and it gets carried down into a pit in the river. Now, that comes into place after this scene where he's talking with Vincent. And while they're talking, you get another cut back to before the Forgotten City, where Tifa tries breaking Cloud out of his crippling doubt. And he's like, you guys go. Or he tells Rude and Reno to go after the kids. And Tifa's like, stop running. I know that you are, or she basically is like, I know that you're filled with doubt and I know that you think that you can't do anything, and you think you got it so damn hard. Well, sure, you don't pick up the phone, but I don't see you throwing it away either. You want to help, you just don't know how to help, is essentially what she's saying. And so Reno and Rude basically say, you're going. The base is all yours. After rewatch this movie, I thought you were reviewing the game. No, I'm not reviewing the game. That would take all day. Believe me, an hour 19, and I'm just starting to get to the third act. or mainly middle of second act. But yeah, the film Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, the 26 minutes of additional footage plus the alternate cuts they use does really lend to the fact that it is kind of two different versions of the film. So when he snaps back to the Forbidden City or Forgotten City where he and Vincent are talking and Marlene is there, he's like, Vincent, can you take Marlene back to the city? I need to go to Rufus and get answers. And he's like, I can't do that. And Marlene yells at him. She's like, forget it, Cloud. Why don't you ever pay any attention to us? And Cloud tries to explain. He's like, please give me some time. There's a battle to be fought, but there's more to just fighting it. Do you understand? And she's like, no, I don't. And so that's when the reverie then comes into place, because Vincent asks him, are you sure it's more, or are you sure this is just about fighting? And that's where the reverie goes. And then he's like, are sins ever forgiven? And we all know what Vincent's answer is going to be. I've never tried. And we all know that Vincent's character is extremely powerful, considering that he is an embodiment of chaos. If you know, or if you want to know more about that, I suggest you play the PlayStation 2 game Dirge of Cerberus, or you watch the gameplay and the cinematics to understand Vincent's true power, because they don't really go into how powerful Vincent is in this movie. Ruben Thomas Official, good to see you. Thank you for stopping in. Just saw your comment. Sorry about that. The chat is slow on the StreamYard side. But yes, if you do watch it, Vanja, see if you can actually watch both versions, the theatrical and then the complete version, because you will notice a marked difference. You will also notice that there are two different voices, because you'll notice that Denzel and Marlene have different voices in the films, where Denzel and Marlene have younger voices in the theatrical. In the complete version, I'm guessing it was done a year later because their voices are much more matured. I think it's the same voice actor, but I really honestly can't tell completely. I think it is, but it might not be. So yeah, definitely check them out. So then Cloud basically decides, like, well, I'm going to try and I'll phone in the verdict. And he takes Marlene home. Now, then we see what happened to his phone as it starts sinking in, and you get a call from Reeve, who is Kate Sith in Final Fantasy VII. He's the mind behind the cat and the doll, or in the dog doll, or whatever they call it, as well as the little cat doll thing. You also hear from Yuffie and how all the kids in the Wutai village are mysteriously vanished and they're missing. You also hear Tifa, all the voices overlapping on his phone messages. And then when it finally sinks to the bottom, you hear Aerith talking from the live stream. I never blamed you. Not once. You came for me. That's all that mattered. And yeah, even now I can actually feel tears well up from my eyes. That scene, the whole of Final Fantasy VII is very emotional for me, because there are themes that that I can personally identify with, like loss of a person right in front of you, a person that you cared about, having to lay several members of my family to rest. And so, yeah, that hearing a voice of somebody who is dead is something that would make me very emotional. Let's just say that. So the third act begins in Midgar. And we see the remnants are there, and the kids are there, and they go to the monument that Shinra made after the fall or after the destruction of Meteor. And the parents of the missing kids are trying to get the kids to listen. Is Rufus the guy with the long red hair? No, that is Reno, one of the Turks. Rufus is the guy in white. He was the president of Shinra Tech. And so they're all trying to get their kids, and they're all yelling at Yazoo and Laws. And so Laws and Yazoo are kind of getting really pissed off listening to these people yelling at him and whatnot. So Yazoo just starts summoning shadow creepers and causing a mass panic in the streets where all the shadow creepers are going after everybody. The shadow creepers are the same beasts that, for those of you who didn't catch earlier on in the film or the review, they're the same beasts that were attacking Cloud. They're bony, clawed, black, destructive creatures is how I could best describe them. They also have bony, sharp protrusions and whatnot. So, yeah. So then Laws and Yazoo are about to try to pull down the monument when Reno and Rude show up, telling them that you're not going to find Mother there. You're not going to, or so then they get taunted and they end up starting the fight. Now then then there's a cut that is like a 20-minute cut from the fight where that fight literally continues from the next second. And this is where the movie started in the complete version, was not explored in the other version. But anyway, the theatrical version has the same scene, just differently, or cut differently, where Kadaj is talking with President Rufus in an abandoned building that was being rebuilt, about how the main goal is to get Mother so that Sephiroth can come forth. This is the part leading up to the summoning of Bahamut, yes. Now, everybody knows from Final Fantasy VII, if you have played this game, or if you played the game Final Fantasy... Oh, looks like I got weak internet right now. Sorry about that, folks. And I'm sorry for the video quality. It does seem to be crapping out a little bit. Let's see here. There we go. Let's see if I can actually ramp up the video quality. Well, it says auto 720, so there's... See if that did anything. Yeah, looks like it cleared it up a little bit. So, yeah. Rufus and Laws or not Laws, but Kadaj are talking. And hold on one second. Okay, sorry about that. One of my housemates are here, or asked me a question. Here, ultimate summon. Yes, Bahamut is in all the ultimate summons. However, this is a version of Bahamut that is not in any of the games. Now, in Final Fantasy VII, there is Bahamut, Neo Bahamut, and then Bahamut Zero. Bahamut Zero you only get if you can get the huge materia from the ship, or from the rocket, from Sid's rocket, and then reunite it in Cosmo Canyon. And you also have to have Bahamut and Neo Bahamut materias as well to get Bahamut Zero. Now, Bahamut Zero is literally the strongest version of Bahamut by any measure. He's a world ender. But Bahamut Sin, which is in the movie, is pretty interesting too. One of the things I noticed about Bahamut Sin in the movie, in the complete version, I don't know if it's the same in the other version, but I'm saying I simply noticed it in the complete version, is that there's a small little upgrade to his design where he also has kind of like an insect wings that are transparent to go along with the metallic wings that he has as well. So when you see him get summoned, and then you see the Turks react where they're running at Laz and Yazoo, and you see how Reno smacking freaking Rude and reacting like, hello. That tells you that that whole conversation between the president and Kadaj was happening just at the same time that the scene began with Yazoo and Laz getting ready to summon the creepers to go after everybody. It all falls into the same time of each event happening at the same time. So they cut to the other scene to show you what's going on at that exact same time. Because otherwise it would be a minute. It took them like freaking 5 to 6 minutes running to Laz and Yazoo, who are right there, like right in front of them. So yes, there is a cut with time and events and whatnot. So then you see Tifa after Bahamut is trying to wreck the monument because, Bahamut is summoned to basically do the bidding of the person who summoned him. So he automatically knows what it is, or the will of the summoner. So Bahamut is going after the monument. And while Reno and Rude are trying to get away from Laz and Yazoo, the other two remnants, Tifa is trying to wake up Denzel, who is also standing around the monument as well. Is this an animated movie? It is. Yes, it is an animated movie. It is CGI live action is what I call, or it's a CGI live action is what it's called. It's basically a much greater updated graphic version of, or graphics wise, it's like Final Fantasy Spirits Within. In fact, that movie is what actually led to the graphic or the animation style that Final Fantasy Advent Children is done in. So you see one of the Shadow Creepers, going after Tifa, where she's getting ready to punch it. You see Bahamut Sin's foot come down, crushing it. And so she's trying to get away from that. And she realized, oh crap, somebody summoned Bahamut. Red 13, that is actually not what happens in the complete version. They cut a lot of, this battle is cut differently. Now, in the complete version, after the explosion where Denzel comes awake after Bahamut shoots out or blasts the monument to try to go after Genova's head, Denzel wakes up, Tifa's unconscious, and you see the kid, Denzel, running at Bahamut. And Bahamut's about to kill him, but that's when Barrett steps in, starts shooting. And then you see Red 13 after Tifa gets up. You see Red 13 and Kate Sith riding him to also step into the fight as well. And this is when you get goosebumps because the band is back together, basically. You see all the players coming in. You see Sid, you see Yuffie, you see Kate Sith, Vincent, Barrett, all of them coming in. Now, Sid's introduction, the guy with the spear and the one that wanted to go into space and all that, and the pilot for the aircraft, his coming into the film is different from the theatrical, where Yuffie comes in keeping or after she throws her shuriken at Bahamut to deflect him off of Barrett because Barrett's gun's jamming. she comes in, and then you see a bunch of monsters in the theatrical version. You see a bunch of the creepers coming in after Tifa. Sorry, my mind is farting right now. And that's when Sid comes in the theatrical and starts jacking up some of them and getting them away. And then he points up to the Shara, the latest model of the same kind of aviation vehicle. It's kind of like a Zeppelin, but not really. It's seriously cool piece of technology. I'll just say that. And then he's like, I'll give you the dang tour afterwards. And you then see Vincent coming. He's like, where can I buy a phone? So then they're all fighting against Bahamut. But in the complete version, you have Sid just drop in right after Yuffie, not smacking any or giving any of the creepers a beat down, but he just falls in and says, I'll get, or check, or see the Shara, the newest model, I'll give you a dang to her afterward, and he just runs off. Where they give Tifa a version, or fighting a bunch of them off, and she then causes them to dissipate, and they all surround Denzel to where they're about to rip him apart. So while she's coming or going back to the ground after she just did a little mid-air fight, you see a building falling behind her, and then you see Cloud coming in or coming off in the distance on his bike, and you see all the different thoughts going through his head. There's a building, or you see the beasts coming at Denzel. You see the building falling behind Tifa, and then you see a reminder of his failure, of what will happen if he doesn't get this right. You see how Sephiroth came down and killed Aerith by stabbing her through the back. So yes, they did, Vanja. They actually do make a lot of changes in this film. This film, like I said, it's two different versions, essentially. You're watching two different films, just with the same story. Now, you then see him pull out two of his swords and throw them in an arcing manner, kind of like a lightsaber throw in the video game, and where he dispels the creepers that are about to kill Denzel, and he is able to slice up the falling debris that's behind Tifa and get her and save her. Now, in the theatrical, it just shows him driving up after everybody else has been introduced or reintroduced. And he tells her that he took Marlene home and that she'll be safe there. Now, I should actually point out that there is a scene of Cloud and Marlene of where he does take her home. He arrives and he puts her there, and she asks him about the stigma. She's like, does it hurt? Not as much as Denzel's. And then he's like, is that why you left? Because you were sick? She's trying to understand why Cloud left, and he explains it to her, and he's like, you guys have always been there for me when I needed it. So now I'm going to be here for you guys now too. He has now reaffirmed himself. He is no longer crippled with doubt. He is putting aside his own pain and his own doubt, and he's now becoming back to what he once was. So I do like that little scene. Having it reinserted into the complete version is actually a lot better, because it's a nice little moment where Marlene can also remind him of something that Barrett always tells her. If you can't look after your family, how can you, or if you can't look after yourself, how can you look after how can you be expected to look after your family? Paraphrased. The real phrase is, how can you look after your family if you can't even look after yourself? And she does it like this. She holds her hand up like this and says it as best in her father's voice, in Barrett's voice. How can you look after your family if you can't even look after yourself? And it's a cute little moment, and it works so well because it also is something of a morality boost for Cloud, so that he kind of now understands that he does need to step up. So when he gets there and he's like, I feel lighter, I must have lost all that weight with all that dilly-dallying, you now know that he is truly ready to take on the challenge of going after Bahamut. And then we get a cut to Rufus and Kadaj. Now, the fight, and you see the different ways that everybody is fighting against Bahamut, trying to keep him occupied and away from everybody else. They're taking him out, or they're taking him into the area that's mostly abandoned of Midgard. And the choreography of how these characters work together is very well done. You see how Yuffie is constantly throwing her shuriken. You see how Vincent's constantly shooting at him. And just as Kaya Sith's Kaya Sith and Red 13 are trying to rip into him, and Yuffie's almost caught in a blast, but Sid comes at the last moment with a spear to yank or stabs into the back of Bahamut's neck, pulling it back so that Bahamut goes like this. Instead of frying Yuffie, he ends up just blasting a building or a pillar area. And then you see Barrett almost getting covered and whatnot. And then you see Cloud stepping in after he saves everybody, and everybody backs off and lets Cloud take over. Now, when you see Cloud going in, you see him really going in. Memes of Destruction, how are you doing? Reviewing Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, the complete version. Now, there isn't much of a difference in the fight between the heroes and Bahamut. However, there is some marked differences in the other version of it. So the complete version is really an improvement in other ways, but the fight between Bahamut Sin and Cloud is essentially done in the same way, where he's slicing, whacking, and hacking at Bahamut, building up a limit break, and eventually knocking Bahamut's ass to the ground to the point where it's had enough and it's going for broke with an Omega-sized blast. Now, you then see the cut back to the next, to Kadaj and President Rufus. Now, they show this happening because what happens after is basically happening at the time of that, or what happens. Kind of like the previous scene where they showed the summoning of Bahamut versus the Turks and remnants. So when they show Kadaj saying, "This is so much fun, sir," any requests for the next act, and you see Rufus pull off his blanket, only showing that, yes, his eye is covered, but he's not horribly disfigured as everybody else would think. And you see that he has a sealed packaged container, a biohazard container, that has Genova's head in it. So the Sephiroth fight, yes, I will be getting up to that, because it also has some differences in it, as well as the the original fight from the theatrical version. I love the alternate fight better. So when freaking Rufus, he's like, a good son would have known, and then he just throws the freaking head right over the side of the building. The look that Kadaj has, he just looks widely at him like, you are so fucking dead, and then blasts him, and then it cuts to Bahamut flying up for the Omega Blast. I love how all the other characters help Cloud to get velocity. It shows that these characters are a family unit that care enough for each other to help them through whatever needs to be done. And the look between Tifa and Cloud is an affirmation that they do care for each other. There's no overt romance in this movie, which is fine because we all know that it is still there, that Cloud and Tifa care about each other. And yes, they are romantically involved, but they don't overtly speak to that in this movie, which is okay because any fan knows that that is really, or that it's there, but it doesn't need to be overt. So just that look between them before she helps throw him up with more velocity basically is them to each other saying that they love each other, even though her words are no giving up. So then when he's going through the blast that Bahamut lets out, because that blast is humongous, he flies right into it and he starts struggling, but then he sees Aerith come down and give him a hand as well. So it's basically even more of a boost. So then he's able to slice Bahamut up the back, killing it and whatnot. So when he lands, he then notices and hears Kadaj screaming just as he releases the blast that you saw before Bahamut took flight. So when Rufus throws the building, or is as Rufus is throwing Genova's head over the side of the building, or Bahamut is already dead at that point and is falling to the city into pieces. So it's an interesting way of how they cover the different time, or the same time, but in different scenes. And it manages to be translated well. So then you get the fall and the chase for Genova, where as Rufus is falling off the building, he fires a couple shots at Kadaj, misses. So then he's like, if Kadaj is going for Genova, I can't, or I'll just destroy Genova's head. And you see the fight where he's trying to shoot. He's not trying to shoot Kadaj. He's trying to shoot Genova, or the head of Genova, the very thing that he was carrying with him, so that Kadaj can't get it. And a lot of people are set because I've watched the movie with others, and they're like, excuse me, why is he, or he is a terrible shot and whatnot. And it's like, he's not aiming for Kadaj. He's aiming for Genova's head. And a lot of people don't realize that. So it's like, oh. So then you also see after Kadaj catches Genova's head, the case that carries her, you see Sung and Elena shoot their netting to catch Rufus, but in the complete version, you actually see them running up to position themselves to shoot the nets. You actually see them more in the movie than in the theatrical version. Now, then we get the big chase on the highway. Now, the chase on the highway is showing what Cloud can do against the remnants when he's not crippled with doubt. Yes, he still has the geostigma, but he's also able to handle the fight a lot better. He's not, or his mind's not compromised. Yes, his body is still has the geostigma in his arm, but he's clear in what his purpose is. And you also see Reno and Rude get into a chopper to go after them to give Cloud a hand. And I love the frickin'. This is a huge highway, folks. You see how big this highway is in the film. Like, one rocket from Rude is enough to take the entire structure of the highway and just literally level it up like this and then tilt it over. And I'm like, what the fuck kind of rocket is that? A Moab? I mean, seriously. It's like a freaking thermite missile that he launches from a standard bazooka missile, you know? It is freaking nuts. And then you see Yazoo use his bike to following the destruction of the highway to bring down the chopper, flying through the open sides, knocking over Rude, and shooting the control stick to the chopper. And I'm like, that's how skilled people are in these movies. And I absolutely love it because it's a fantasy movie. it works. It shows you just how skilled these people are and whatnot. So then they crash that one, and you see Sung and Elena flying in with another one saying, come on, get your butts in here so we can finish this. So in the tunnel, I like the tunnel fight a little bit with the bikes, because Kadaj is above the tunnels, and you see or because he actually got separated from the rest. So going over talking points here. The fight the fight in the tunnel is how it is in the theatrical version, where you see Laws using his super speed, also using his power glove, and then throwing his bike with his legs. I love how he actually uses his legs to hold onto his bike to whip it around and throw it right at Cloud. And it's like, that is just freaking nuts. Nobody could do that in real life, but it's just cool to see. It's a cool visual of the fight. So when Cloud wipes out their weapons, where you clearly see that he's no longer, as I said, he's no longer crippled with doubt and whatnot, he's able to focus, and he's able to easily take these guys out of the game for a little bit, where he slices one of the sword guns barrels off, and he also slices Laws's power gauntlet, or his power glove, destroying it. Now, the scene where you have Reno and Rude outside of the tunnel talking is like, hey, partner, so what you got there? He's like, Shinra technology at its finest. Oh, so you made this. Well, if anything else, or if nothing else, it's flashy. And it's a bomb that they have. Now, what this thing looks like, to give you guys context, this thing looks like a few sticks of dynamite, like 6 sticks of dynamite surrounding some sort of battery-like thing. Now, when this thing goes off, because there's 2 of them and they're timed, it creates fireworks, and it creates one hell of a freaking bang. I mean, it causes Cloud, who blew by them on his bike, the shockwave hits him almost immediately when it goes off. And Reno and Rude, basically after Cloud drives by them, it doesn't show them getting off the highway, but it does show the counter going down to 0, just as Laws and Yazoo are driving or are coming upon it. So you know that it took them, or you know that blast takes them off the board for a while. So now Cloud is chasing after Kadaj and is now unimpeded. And then we get to the church, because they end up getting close to the church and whatnot, and Kadaj has a brief reprieve and inspects the case. Now he sees that it's dripping. It's little green ooze. And it's essentially the same scene in the theatrical and the completed version, where he screams because he thinks that Shinra actually succeeded in destroying the head. And then you see Cloud showing up right outside the door, and it's like, when he revs up the wheels, it's like, God damn, that almost looks monstrous, you know? And then we get the live stream coming up after a couple blasts from Kadaj. And I love how the live stream just flows up out and is different strands that spiral, or it is Final Fantasy. Yeah. I love how it spirals up the water and then just pulls out to create, totally defying laws of physics, to create a live stream event where this stream is actually curative, where you see it can heal geostigma You also see Kadaj very averse to it. He's like trying to smack it away. It's like, go away, yuck, yuck. And I'm like, that could have been a little bit better. Now, don't get me wrong. I love this movie, but there are some objective flaws. Some of the writing could be better. Some of the acting and motion capture could be better. Because you do actually see some of the things that are. I don't think this movie was fully made in a computer. I do believe that there was motion capture for some of the scenes. And I just believe that that one scene, if it is mo-capped, could have been done a little bit better. So then you see that Cloud's geostigma on his arm is completely gone because it disappears after the live stream is released. So then Kadaj drives off, trying to get away from that area because it's harmful to him. It doesn't show just how harmful, but it would start to kill him if it started to fall onto him. So after he's healed, you hear Aerith's voice saying, "Let's go, Cloud." And you see him arriving at Shinra. Now, the fight between Kadaj and Cloud, where before they fight, they actually I love the small banner between them. He's like, "So what's going to happen now? Mother's going to tell me." I guess a remnant wouldn't really know. So what if I'm a puppet? Once upon a time, you were too. And that is one thing that does piss off Cloud. Even though he's able to take it like a man, he's that verbal jab. You see him, or when he's saying "once upon a time" and charging up a blast, you see Cloud react and put his sword at ready and to prepare for whatever's coming next. And then the fight takes off in earnest where they're fighting. Now, Kadaj, when he fought Cloud at the Forbidden City, was very easily handled Cloud. This is Cloud at his strongest, where he is fighting no longer crippled by geostigma. He's no longer crippled with doubt. This is Cloud at his strongest, and you can see a very marked difference. This is a Cloud that you see if you go to my Twitter, where I do, or where I announced that I was live, you will see where Cloud actually gives a hint of a smile in this fight. And Sid brings in the air or everybody else as backup, but it's Cloud's fight. And they all have their little witty talk and whatnot. And Tifa explains while Vince, he's like, he can handle this himself. Kadaj is a remnant of Sephiroth. Think of him as a larval form. And then you have the stupid stuff between Kate Sith and Yuffie and whatnot. And then you have Sid. He's like, this is man talk. But Barrett does a nice save when Yuffie's like, sexist. And he's like, some men don't get it either. So Tifa explains it. She's like, 2 years ago, remember all the strength we had when we fought that last battle? It's only been 2 years ago, but that right now, that power is gone. That strength is gone. But Cloud, I think he has found it again. And I love what Barrett says. He's got 10 minutes. Not Cloud. He's actually referring to Kadaj, because Cloud at that level took on Sephiroth at his greatest and won handily. So it's like, that Cloud's a real pain in the ass, like always. Cloud is Cloud. And then you see them pulling out while Cloud, or pulling out of the field of battle while Cloud has that little smirk on his face, and then puts his fusion sword together with all the blades. And Kadaj is visibly kind of sick and tired of this shit. So he does a small jump, or he does a huge jump at Cloud while Cloud is spinning his blade with a limit break. And I love how he's just doing it, and then he just looks up at the last moment, and Kadaj, you see the recognition that Kadaj just made a mistake. Kadaj is like, oh, crap. but he doesn't say it. It's just the look says it all. And that's when Cloud just smacks him with the blade. But we then get to the resurrection of Sephiroth, where Kadaj throws the head of Genova, or the case with Genova's head in it, at Cloud, and Cloud just slices or uses his sword to deflect it, but he doesn't realize that he just sliced open the case. So Kadaj then jumps off or away from the area, grabs the head, and looks at Cloud and is like, my reunion, bet you're dying to watch. Shoves the head into his chest, and as he lands, he sticks his hands up, and the second that Cloud realized what was about to happen, but he got there a split or a fraction of a second too late. So the second that he puts his hands up like this, literally you count half a second, Cloud just cratered the area with it, or with him and the sword, but you then see it's no longer Kadaj in that next half second, it's Sephiroth. And then you see his Murasame blade completely or materialize. That's what stops Cloud's blade. And you see Cloud just track it, and then he looks back and he's like, he's like, or you hear Cloud, or you hear Sephiroth, good to see you, Cloud. And give a smile, and Cloud's like, oh shit. And Sephiroth whips his sword over, sending Cloud upward, and then he does it again, sending Cloud further up to the top of the building, where they then talk. The dialogue in this scene is extremely well done, because he's like, your geostigma's gone, that's too bad. And he asks him, what do you want? The last thoughts of geostigma's dead, meaning he wants all of their power to go back into the life stream, and so that he can kill the planet, essentially. What's going on right now, essentially, is what he's saying. The last thoughts of geostigma is dead. Those remnants of the life stream, or will join with the life stream and girdle the planet, choking it and corroding it. What I want, Cloud, is to sail the darkness of the cosmos with this planet as my vessel, just as my mother did long ago. And I absolutely love the whole thing where he sticks his hand up, summoning all his power to put darkness back over Midgard again, or Midgar. And then he says, and then one day we'll find a new planet, and on its surface we'll create a shining future. And he's like, what about this planet? Well, that's up to you, Cloud. Meaning the only way this planet survives is if you kill me. And Sephiroth is not blind to the possibility that he might lose again, which that is an acknowledgement of. Well, that's up to you, Cloud. By him saying that, he acknowledges, if you stop me, okay. But you're not going to stop. But he's also very skilled and confident. And then you see the fight between Sephiroth and Cloud. And while Cloud is still at his best, he still is also not as strong as he could be going up against Sephiroth. And Sephiroth hands his ass to him a couple times, where he's moving with speed. He's also able to defy gravity and whatnot. And you see him smacking him into buildings, their swords clashing, creating light energy sparks around them. And I love one of the lines that Sephiroth delivers. He's like, I thought of a wonderful present for you. Shall I give you despair? Because that is one of the things that reminds you of what Marlene said earlier in the film. Sadness was the price to see it end. Meaning the final battle of the first time around in the game. Now, the fights where freaking Sephiroth is just slicing up buildings and chunks of buildings and freaking trying to drop them all on Cloud is nuts. And it shows that just how skilled Cloud and how powerful his sword is, because he's able to just follow along. And he also realizes he needs to get away from Sephiroth because fighting him close up is not working. and it's taken a toll on him. Now, it's when he finally gets away from Sephiroth and gets that distance, that's where the fight changes. Now, in the theatrical version, you have Sephiroth get the upper hand, slamming him down, and then stabbing him in the chest or in the shoulder area. Sorry, just smacked my desk here. And he's like, tell me what you cherish most. Give me the pleasure of taking it away. That is what you see in the that's what you see in the theatrical edition. And that's when Cloud takes the blade, pulls it out, stabs it into the building, and then tries taking a swipe at him. And then he beats, and that's when he goes after the upper hand and beats Sephiroth. Where in this completed version, Cloud charges up his limit break to go after Sephiroth, does a few flourishes with him, and then makes the same mistake Kadaj does, where he jumps at him from a distance. Well, remember, Sephiroth has a very long sword. He just sticks it up and slams it right into Kadaj, or into Cloud's stomach. And he's like, and then he tells him, he's like, I'm going to give you that gift now. And then you see his one wing sprout from his back, the one-winged angel. And he throws Cloud up, and then he flies up and does a bunch of stabbing maneuvers, slicing up Cloud. There's a lot more blood in this film. Or there is blood in this film. Where in Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, non-complete, the theatrical, there isn't blood in the film. This part gets bloody. I mean, he's just stabbing and stabbing and stabbing, like all around Cloud's body, and he's just getting diced up. And then that's when he falls down to the ground, or when Sephiroth throws him down to the ground, and he has the reminiscence of Zack. And Zack's telling him, he's like, you need help with him, man? Remember why I told you that my hopes and dreams are all in you now, dude? Do you remember what I told you? He's like, yes, that I'm your living legacy. Well, do you need help with him? No, I can do this. Alrighty then. Do it. And then you get that scene where Cloud goes after him. And instead of the theatrical where he says, I pity you on the ground, you just don't get it at all. It's in midair when in theatrical he says, there's not a thing I don't cherish, before doing the Omniblade or the Omnislash. It's all in midair where he says that, I pity you, you just don't get it at all. There's not a thing I don't cherish. And then he releases the sword, or all 7 of his swords, to confuse Sephiroth, and it's a much more improved Omnislash version, where he is just slashing him all over, and then you see the landing with all the different swords. Honestly, that is a way better version. The fight between Sephiroth or in complete version is way better, because it shows you just how dangerous Sephiroth is, even as a remnant being him. So then we get the stay where you belong in my memories, and you see Sephiroth, I will never be a memory. That is the scene in Final Fantasy theatrical where that's when his wing appears. Where in the complete version, it appears a lot sooner. So then we get that Kadaj, or the wing wraps around Sephiroth, and he goes back into Kadaj, and Kadaj is dying, essentially. And he hears Aerith talking to him. And then you see Kadaj go off into the life stream. But the thing is, he's not tainted anymore. He embraces Aerith and allows, or you don't see Aerith, but he reaches up and his hand falls or grips something before he disappears. Now, that's where, or shortly after, you see Cloud is celebrating with all of his friends, but he just looks up and closes his eyes because the battle's over. Well, then he gets shot through the chest from the back, and you clearly see the bullet go right through him. And it's like, wait, what the fuck? It's a great what the fuck moment. And then you realize that Laz and Yazoo are still alive. And because of the purifying life stream rain that's going on ever since Sephiroth was defeated, well, they're starting to disintegrate. And they're like, we'll go together and together we'll play. Well, Cloud charges them and they use the remaining materia in their system to try to destroy him. And you see the explosion. Now, another change is in the theatrical edition, you see Denzel and Marlene see the explosion as well, and he's like, he'll come back. He said he will. And then you see the heaven scene where Cloud is rejected by Aerith and Zack. But in the complete version, you see Cloud or Marlene and Denzel. Denzel answers a phone. He's very happy for who's on the other side of it. Don't know what they're saying, but you essentially understand that they have to go to the church. And it's a almost Disney version special of what goes on. Everybody is getting the same call: go to the church, or go to Aerith's church. So you see all the kids with Geostigma and the adults and everybody running toward the church, led by Denzel and Marlene. And you then see the scene where Cloud's up in a white light area, and he's like, "Mother?" Where Aerith gripped his head, and she's like, "Why does everybody keep calling me mother lately?" Well, maybe they're fond of you. I think this one's too old or too big to adopt. And then they send him back. And you get the scene in the church where he heals Denzel. And then you also get the same scene, or in that same scene, you hear Red 13 speak for the first time. It's like, so that's what his voice sounds like. I love it. I remember seeing the first time, and it's like, at first I felt it was an underwhelming voice for Red 13, but it actually does grow on you the more you hear it. Even though it's only that one line, there are still children with the stigma. I mean, Red 13 outlasts all of his friends. Hence, the 500 years later, he goes to Midgar overgrown. But I do like how he heals, or after Cloud heals Denzel, and all the kids are going in and surrounding him, and then he finally has a smile on his face. Cloud does not smile throughout this entire film until the ending, where he's smiling with the kids around him and whatnot. And as he's looking, he then sees Aerith like she was once before she died. And then as she's walking out, he also sees Zack standing by the door, and she turns around and says, "You see, everything's all right." It's her final goodbye to Cloud. He's now finally realized he's not alone. Took him a while, but he figured it out. And that is where you can actually see Aerith completely. And it's I love how the director decided to do that. In all the other previous scenes that you see Aerith, you don't see her completely until that one moment. And I really do think that is one of the better decisions that they made in the movie. So the closing credits have in the theatrical, they have the one post-credit scene, which is going back to the bar where they have a new family photo with all the heroes plus Denzel, and you see God smiling. Tim's talk, I have not. I will probably check it out when all the episodes come in. It didn't grab my interest enough, so I will eventually check it out, but I'm going to wait a couple weeks. So the second post-credit scene, which unfortunately is really cut, or they didn't allow it to be put through all the way on a digital on the digital version is the area outside of Midgar where Zack's grave used to be, where the sword used to be in the ground. And you hear Denzel, is this somebody's grave? And then you hear Cloud tell him, no, this is where a hero's journey began. And then you see the sword is now in Aerith's church because Zack and Aerith were a couple. And that is the end of Final Fantasy VII, Advent Children complete. The 26 minutes and the alternate takes of the fight really do, or the alternate takes in the film, really do add to the quality of this film. It does make it a separate film from Advent Children. They're two separate films, essentially, because of the differences, no matter how minor or how big. It does really make it seem like they're two different films. Now, the scoring for Advent Children theatrical, I would give a 6 out of 10 objective, because there does seem to be a missing quality to the film. There does seem to be a missing element to the story. They don't have, or you don't understand certain things unless you watch the completed version of the film, where then you see the completed version and objectively it goes up from a 6 to about a 9 objectively. There are writing elements that a lot of people might see as odd. However, that would be a subjective opinion. So subjectively, Advent Children non-complete theatrical, I would put the movie at about an 8, because there were things that I felt was missing. But with Advent Children complete, it subjectively goes straight to a 10. Moviegoer included. If you like Final Fantasy VII, the game, the original game, not the remake, and even if you like the remake as well, you will love this movie. This movie is is made for the fans, strictly for the fans. As the beginning of the film said, to those who love this world and new friendly company therein, this reunion is for you. So yes, this movie is indeed made for the fans of Final Fantasy VII, and they did it in a wonderful way, to the point where somebody like me, who was an extreme fan of Final Fantasy VII, this movie had tears going down my eyes in several scenes because of how beautiful the movie was made. Now, hints for next week's mystery review. Before I get to the hints, I do want to say stay tuned for tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. I am doing a movie discussion stream with Lethal Lightning on my channel. It's going to be about Batman Beyond: The Return of the Joker. I've been trying to get him onto my channel. I was going to bring him on for a mystery review, but I decided, let's make it just a movie discussion, open, everybody knows and whatnot. So yes, if you guys want to check out that, it's going to be on tomorrow morning at 11:30 a.m. So definitely keep an eye out for it. It is, or the stream, I will actually put a link to it so you can set your reminders. There you go. So the hints for the next film: Sean Connery and the Old Code. If you know it, do not spoil it. If you want to send me a DM, send me a DM with your guess. I will put the hints on the next or on the tweet that follows the stream. Anyway, folks, thank you so much to Jacob Ironside, Tim's Talk, Vanja, Jacob Ironside. I just said your name twice. Memes of Destruction, Ruben Thomas, Lovely Sherry, Jens Petter, Kamen Rider, Price is Right, Pops, and Decepticons Cave of Villains. Thank you all so much for tuning into the stream. Thank you to those who left a like and whatnot. Remember, I am trying to get to 1,000 subs before June. If you guys can get me to 1,000 subs, I'll dye my hair and my facial hair all orange for the celebration stream so y'all can make fun of me. Anyway, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. Remember for the hints and to tune in tomorrow for the Lethal or for the stream with me and Lethal. Anyway, folks, y'all know the drill. Like, comment, subscribe, share, all that jazz. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. What did you think of the Final Fantasy Advent Children film and the complete version of the film? Did you like them? Did you not? Let me know. Anyway, this has been Orange Hat Reviews. Stay humble.